If you saw my short, you know that I got a Canon. And as a Nikon user, it's been interesting. Hey, what's up you guys? Nick here. For those of you who are new to my channel, my name is Nick. I'm a professional photographer who's been shooting professionally for the last 4 years, but I've had a camera in my hand for about the last 17. Now, over those 17 years of shooting, I've handled a few Canons in my time. I found that generally they were a little bit more user-friendly, but I finally actually got my hands onto owning one. Now this is a Canon Rebel EOS T3. I hope I said that right. You Canon fanboys can correct me down in the comments if I am wrong. Now I have not done enough testing with this camera to do a full review on it. So far I've done some street photography with it, I've done one portrait session, and I shot at the Ice Castles with it. And today we're going to review its low light performance. I don't have enough experience behind this camera yet in order to do a broad spectrum review of it. I do want to talk about its low light capabilities. Now, if you saw my video that I released last Friday, and I'll link that one right up there, it was actually a video of the Ice Castles. I did not shoot the video of that with this. I actually used my GoPro Hero 4, which I have a review for that I'll put down in the description below. This Canon right here was given to me. I did have to order the lens for it. This is the trusty little Yongnuo 50mm 1.8. Those of you who've been around a while, you know how much I love the Yongnuo 50mm 1.8. I don't have any complaints on it from my Nikons, and I really don't have any complaints about it with the Canon. We'll do a full review on the Canon version of it because it is slightly cheaper, and I think there's a reason behind that, but we'll do a whole video on just that. So the Canon Rebel T3 is a 12 megapixel crop censored camera that came out in 2011. Now the person I got this camera from didn't really use it a whole hell of a lot. It had a pretty low shutter count. I think it was like 3,500, and it just had the kit lenses, and it's comparable to the Nikon D5100, as the Nikon D5100 did come out in 2011 as well. Though the exact competitor to this would actually be a Nikon D3000 series. I don't know if it's the 31 or the 3200, but that is actually the Nikon version of this camera, because the 5100 has 16 megapixels, this has 12 megapixels, but we all know how I feel about megapixels, and I'm going to link my Nikon D50 review up there. That is a 20-year-old camera with 6 megapixels, and it takes great photos. So the low light performance of this camera, I was actually extremely surprised by. This one has an ISO range of 100 ISO to 6400 ISO, and in reality, I shot the vast majority of the photos that I'm showing at the Ice Castles between 400 and 800 ISO. Any higher than that, they got kind of noisy. I did check at 1000 and 2000 ISO, and they got really, really noisy. That's to be expected with just about any consumer grade camera. Now, I don't know for sure if this one has a built-in autofocus motor. The Yongnuo lens has an autofocus built into it, so I don't have to worry about that. And I don't have a whole lot of Canon lenses to experiment with, but I do need to get some EOS mount film lenses because I love the kind of photos that are created with vintage film lenses on digital cameras, and I have several vintage film lenses that I use with my Nikons. So as we progress with this camera, I'm going to create more videos with this camera here. So its low light performance, as you can see from the photos that I've been showing, is actually really, really, really good for a 10-year-old camera with 12 megapixels, especially one that I have very little experience using. I was able to capture a lot of the essence of what was going on at the Ice Castles. Now these photos have gone through Lightroom and they've gone through Photoshop, and I cleaned up a little bit of the noise that I was experiencing at 800 ISO, because there is a little bit of noise at 800 ISO. But fitted with this really fast lens, shooting at f1.8 and f2.2, I cannot complain about the quality and the speed and the abilities of this camera in low light settings. So I would have to say that the low light capabilities of the Canon Rebel T3 is actually really, really fantastic. And I'm really happy with the performance of this camera at the Ice Castles. I didn't want to lug around a heavy bag, so I actually didn't bring my D5300 or my D5100 to the Ice Castles, and so I was really banking on luck that I would get some really good shots with this Canon, especially because I don't have a lot of experience with it. Now, one of the complaints I have with this Canon in particular, and I don't know if any other Canons are like this, so if they are, let me know in the comments down below. My main problem that I was having at the Ice Castles, and that I've had in the portrait and the street photography video, and this will be mentioned in those videos as well, on my Nikons, these arrows right here, when I'm taking a photo, at any point in time, I can press those arrows, and it will change the focus point on the camera. With this one, I have to push the bracketing button every time I want to change the point of autofocus. So even if I have that autofocus menu up, as soon as I take the photo, the autofocus menu goes down and I have to re-click the bracketing button and choose my new focal point, which is a bit of a hassle when you're trying to take photos quickly and changing positions quickly. It's an issue I haven't had with my Nikons before. Even my D70, the D70S, and the D50 will all change focus position without an extra button push, but I do have to say, this quick ISO access button, super convenient, and then it also has a quick button for changing what Canon calls the drive mode, so single shot, continuous, timer, all that stuff. There's just one button on the back. I don't have to go through a whole menu system, and also there's a white balance button. So all I have to do is push those buttons and I'm automatically taken to that menu item to decide the white balance that I want to be using, to decide my ISO, and to decide my autofocus point, which the autofocus point part is annoying. I should be able to put it in a mode, and there's a possibility that I can put it in a mode where those buttons are always for autofocus, because when I'm actually shooting, the only thing I'm really adjusting on the shoot, because I shoot in RAW, I don't change the white balance while I'm shooting, and once I have my ISO set, I use my shutter speed and my f-stop in order to change exposure. So hopefully, and there could be a way to do it, I just don't know it. So if you know it, leave a comment down below. But to have these permanently as to change my autofocus point, that would be fantastic. I'll look into it too. And if I find a tutorial, we'll do a YouTube short all about that. Overall, what would I say is the performance of the Canon Rebel T3 in low light conditions? I'd have to say that it performs just as good as the photos I took last year with the Nikon D5300. The low light capabilities of this camera with this lens and the ISO at a reasonable number, a reasonable sensitivity, and the f-stop wide open, I was able to really get a lot of shots that didn't have a lot of motion in them because I didn't have to slow the shutter speed down too much, and I was able to actually really surprised at how well the colors in these photos came out. So I would say that, out of 10, 8. It performs as an 8. There are Canons that I've used that did better in low light. The Mark series, I think it was a Mark V or a D5, I don't know exactly how that works. And then the higher end Nikons also perform better in low light, but they have an entire sensor, like it's a full frame sensor compared to this crop sensor. So surprisingly, it does really well in low light situations. So as we discussed in the D70, the D70S, and the D50 videos, which I will link all down in the description below, those ISOs were all limited from 200 ISO to 1600 ISO. For cheap used cameras, they didn't have a large ISO range, so they don't perform at low light like at all. It's terrible. This one here though, these range from $150 to $250 on eBay. You can pick them up all day long for that much. For $150 to $250, you can also get a Nikon D50-100. Honestly, they came out in the same year. They're pretty similar with megapixels, 12 and 16, unless you're blowing your images up. Again, like I've said before, it's not really gonna make a difference. If one of these is available in your area or lenses are easier for you to get a hold of, I don't see a problem with using a Canon. Again, I don't really have a camera loyalty. I shoot Nikon because I happen to have a bunch of Nikon lenses from my grandfather. But the Canon is definitely, other than that one thing with the autofocus, which you're gonna hear me complain about a lot in the future videos on this camera, other than that, it's way more user-friendly. The camera is lighter, the camera is smaller, lenses are cheaper, though the glass isn't always as good. We'll talk about that on the review on this lens. Overall, it's more user-friendly. It does shoot video. It doesn't shoot 1080, but it shoots 720. So overall, yeah, I'd say for low light performance, the Canon Rebel T3, yeah, 8 out of 10. Definitely an 8 out of 10. So there you guys have it, my ramble about the Canon Rebel EOS T3. I think that's the full thing for it. 12 megapixel camera, $150 to $250 on eBay. It came out in 2011, and a 100 to 6400 ISO range. After 800, it gets super noisy. Overall, great little camera for shooting in low light conditions. So if you're leaning more towards Canon over Nikon, I am going to be including more Canon information on my channel as my channel continues to grow and expand and I'm able to get my hands on more Canons. We can kind of balance the Canon and Nikon thing. I also have a Sony review coming up. Someone's letting me borrow a mirrorless camera. I'm super excited about that. And then I have another EOS Canon that's comparable to the Nikon D50 that we're going to be doing some reviews on as well. So please like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the bell notification so you guys know right when I upload. And at 1,000 subscribers, which we're at, like, when I'm recording this, we're at 621. which is amazing. At 1,000 subscribers, I'm giving away this Nikon N80 35mm film camera. I did a YouTube short on this one that came out on Monday, and I will link that guy right up there for you. But overall, these little N80s are great little film cameras, so if you're into film photography, definitely subscribe and hit up my Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter, all linked in the description below, so that you guys can enter to win this. So thank you again for joining me. I hope you guys have a wonderful afternoon. I hope you're warm. It's -5 degrees outside today, and as soon as I get a couple more portrait sessions under my belt with the Canon, we're gonna do a full overall review of it. I have another video coming out this week all about setting white balance using gray and white cards, so keep a lookout for that. That one was specially requested from a subscriber, so if you guys have video ideas, if you guys have questions, I have no problem making a full video on it if it warrants it, or a YouTube short to quickly explain it to you and anyone else who might be answering that question. I answer all of my comments, or at least reply to them, so if you have any questions, concerns, comments, or you want to request a video, just let me know, and I'll catch you all on the flip side. Bye!